HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents High Dive by Jonathan Lee. Read by Gerard Doyle. How difficult it is to remain just one person, for our house is open, there are no keys in the doors, and invisible guests come in and out at will. Czesław Miłosz, Ars Poetica. Initiation, 1978. When Dan was 18, a man he didn't know took him on a trip across the border. It was 1978, the last week of June, 6 days after the British Army shot dead 3 Catholics on the Ballysillan Road. The car smelt of vinegar from fish and chips, and the man had a scarred bald head and 2 jokes, one about the Brits and the other to do with priests. He seemed to be steering Dan somewhere near Clonus, big square-tipped fingers drumming at the wheel, little jolts of surprise in his eyes sometimes as the road invented itself. He had a lavishly ugly cauliflower ear. He touched it several times as he drove. The crowded grey houses of Protestant Ulster gave way to light, to colour. You could feel the wind here and smell the grass. There were dairy buses streaming with red and white scarves. Flags in green and white and gold were wrapped around the branches of trees. The bald man unleashed a magnificent burp as he swung the car onto a dirt track. The dirt track led down to a square of land enclosed by elms. Dan saw daisies, hay bales, a gleam of Coke bottle in the weeds. Beyond the bottle, in a margin of shade, a dark Land Rover was parked. "Don't you worry yourself about the vehicle," the bald man said. "No one stops it, see? He'll be thinking of a Saracen for Christmas." Dan tried to smile. "So that's—" "Yeah?" "It's Mr. McCartland, is it?" "Oh," the bald man said, "I'd reckon so." With his seatbelt still fastened, he began pawing around in his jeans pocket for something, the touchy bulk of his body contorting like he was trapped in a torture chair. But a flattened packet of chewing gum was all that his hand retrieved. He looked at Dan and laughed. "Should have thrown you a can for the journey, shouldn't I? A drink would have tightened the dung." The weather this morning was storybook pure. Big yellow sun, smooth blue sky. A single white cloud was drawn by a child. It seemed the kind of day when nothing serious could happen. A day to drink 8 pints and get burned. There weren't many days like this in an Irish year. They asked to be remembered. He walked with the bald man towards the Land Rover, sharp grass going flat under their boots. Cottages were scattered around this land, detached places fronted by tilted fence posts and low open gates, window shutters swagging on tired hinge pins. Properties that promoted an idea of privacy without ever quite needing to commit. And he too felt exposed, open, sorely underprepared. He'd had no notice that the car was coming for him. Sweat was already forming at the base of his neck. His leather jacket was cool but heavy. He'd heard so many stories about these initiations, the things they put you through before you could properly join. But he knew too that tall tales were Belfast stock in trade, the false often boosting the true. A thin guy climbed out of the Land Rover. He wore specs and a smart shirt, sand-coloured trousers. Could this really be Dawson McCartland? He looked like an accountant. He pulled 2 large dogs out of the Rover on a long forked lead. One was gold and the other was brown. "Good morning," he said in a nasal monotone, nodding as if to prove that he meant it. Dan went in for a handshake. Instead, he received the dog lead. "I'm Dan." "Well," Dawson said, removing his specs, "that's a relief." His blurry eyebrows were joined, and from under their awning he stared, a twinkliness to his eyes, the corners of his mouth upturned. With a hanky he wiped at the lenses of his glasses. The dogs were barking and pulling on the lead. He looked...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?